everyone, and welcome to part 2 of this Super Robot Wars 30 series discussion. We're going to be looking at many of the series that don't really come from franchises, although a couple of them actually do. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, check it out. It's a good video, and it'll help give you a full understanding of all the different series that will be showing up in the first traditional Super Robot Wars game to make its way to the United States. Those original generation GBA games don't count. Our first series was produced by Sunrise with character designs by Clamp. Many of you know it. It is Code Geass. We get 2 entries in the Code Geass franchise. We get Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion 3 Glorification. This is part of the movie compilation series of the Code Geass franchise. There are 3 movies that cover the first and second season of the show in order to tell a slightly different version of the story. We only get part 3, and it is mechanical designs only, so more or less expect this to be the beginning equipment for your characters from Code Geass. There should be little to no story from this time period as well, so we'll be getting into where the main story is with the next movie. And that would be the second part of the Code Geass franchise that we received. It is Code Geass, Lelouch of the Resurrection. This is the 4th movie, and it tells an original story that occurs 1 year after the events of Glorification. This is going to have some spoilers, so if you're not hugely familiar with Code Geass, well, I'm sorry, this is kind of an important plot point to bring up, and it's kind of spoiled by the title. At the end of Glorification and the end of the original TV series, Lelouch sacrifices his life in order to help bring peace. Well, Cece is not really cool with that, so she decides to drag around his corpse until she can bring him back to life. Because, why should death be permanent? Anyhow, as the title implies, Lelouch comes back from the dead. They end up getting involved with a lot of different little politics, a kidnapping plot, secret identities, all sorts of nonsense, and of course, some mech battles with geasses and nightmares, because obviously we need mecha action in our mecha action series. I don't know how deeply this storyline will play into Super Robot Wars, however, I can probably assume you will meet Cece and some of the other characters in their glorification units, and then have a mission or 2 in order to bring Lelouch back, and then get him in his new unit, and then everyone is slowly but surely getting upgrades throughout the remainder of the game. Keeping with Clamp theming, we have Magic Knight rayearth. This actually was created by Clamp. It began as a manga and eventually became an anime series. It tells the story of 3 girls, Hikaru, Ami, and Fu, who end up traveling to a magical world, end up getting magical powers as they traverse the world and battle against the evil there. And even further into the story, they get their own mecha units to battle against the evils of this magical world. It will be interesting to see how this series gets integrated into the Robot Wars world. However, this isn't the first time rayearth has shown up, as it was introduced in Super Robot Wars T, which is the previous game in the franchise. You're likely only going to get the 3 main girls with their mecha. Overall, they should clash pretty hard with some of the darker series, which could make for some interesting character interactions. Moving on from Clamp, we have the Brave series. For those who don't know, the Brave series was a variety of different shows throughout the 90s, produced by Sunrise, more or less created to sell toys, but generally fun and stupid in a this is meant for 10-year-olds, so don't think about it too hard kind of way. The first of the series we have, and it is the first time it is in the franchise, which means it'll probably get some major story points. Brave Police J. Decker. This is an anime from 1994. It follows Yuta, who ends up befriending a robot called Deckard. He is part of a new police program called the Brave Police. Their general idea is to make transformable robots who can fight crime. Deckard can combine with the J-Loader to become J-Decker, and in that form he has flight abilities, extra weapons, things like that. In addition to Deckard, we also have several other robots, most importantly the 3 that are designed out of construction equipment for some reason, and are part of the main team. This would be Power Joe, a power shovel, McCrane, a crane, and Dumpson, a dump truck. They transform into robots who also assist in the various battles. This series has transformations from vehicle into robot. This has robots combining with other robots to become bigger robots, and villains who are absolutely ridiculous. Nothing ever feels like a major threat in this series, even if it actually is. And the lighthearted nature of a 10-year-old who commands a bunch of police robots kind of writes itself for the humor. The Brave series usually comes off really well in Super Robot Wars games. Not only are the units generally really good, but you also get some fun story interactions because the silliness of their world tends to clash a bit with the darker seriousness of Gundam and other darker franchises. Definitely prepare for some shenanigans, it should be a lot of fun. In addition to that, we have King of Braves, GaoGaiGar Final. This is another series that's only getting its machine entries. GaoGaiGar Final is the follow-up OVA series to the original King of Braves GaoGaiGar TV series. This one introduces some new planets, some new monsters, and some new mecha upgrades. Gao Fight Gar and Majestic GaoGaiGar. Since we're only getting machines, we'll probably just have the upgraded versions available, and the pilots that are required to move those things around. Odds are this is a way of just getting some of the classic GaoGaiGar characters into the roster without actually having to tell their story in any sort of way. And the reason for that is our third Brave series. Hakai-O GaoGaiGar vs. Betterman. Betterman is a spin-off of GaoGaiGar, featuring a tandem-based giant robot piloted by angsty teens to battle Algernon, which is a weird thing that causes humans to transform into monsters for reasons, while also having something to do with human evolution. It's kind of vague and more or less a parody of Evangelion. So, you might be wondering why they would fight GaoGaiGar. Well, the thing is, they're not. They're teaming up to fight against Algernon and other threats to humanity. The series takes place years after GaoGaiGar Final, with Mamoru and Ikumu being older and piloting a brand new robot built with the scientists from Akamatsu Industries, from Betterman, and the GGG group from GaoGaiGar. They pilot the Kaku Senjin Gaigo, a combination robot that allows them to battle against new threats in this new time period. This follow-up to GaoGaiGar Final began as a web novel, and there is also a manga adaptation of it. This is the first time it's entering the Super Robot Wars franchise, so there's a big likelihood this will be a major part of the storyline as well. Expect these characters to be hanging out with the Brave Police, probably fighting both criminals and strange alien threats at the same time. Look, not every series is going to be good. Not every series is going to be memorable, and some series feel like they're probably contractual obligations. And I will tell you right now, the next series I'm going to talk about was created by committee. It was developed by Fields, a Japanese company, in order to be a multimedia franchise, which always makes my skin crawl when I hear that. Of course, I'm talking about Majestic Prince, a series no one cares about. It is a multimedia franchise, a manga that lasted from 2011 to 2019, a 2013 TV series, which obviously doesn't cover the entire manga, and probably a crap load of other stuff I don't care about, such as video games, light novels, and who knows what else. So, stop me if you've heard this before. A ragtag group of teens are chosen to test super robots to fight against aliens, and get this, they don't really get along with each other and have to learn how to teamwork. While Combattler V was cliché because it started all the clichés, Majestic Prince is cliché because it uses all the clichés. This is essentially Ender's Game meets Evangelion meets Votoms, and frankly, I want none of it, so let's move on. But if you thought Majestic Prince, a series created by committee for a corporation to have their own multimedia franchise, is bad, oh no! We get something worse. The very worst franchise put into this game is an isekai series. Because of course it freaking is! It's Knight''S and magic. Which means the and magic belongs to a knight. This series is completely stupid. It's the first time it's in this franchise, which means we're gonna have to deal with dumbass plot points from it. And yes, it pisses me off. Do you want to know what this is? Because this series can die in a freaking fire. A modern-day otaku dies and then is reborn as essentially Harry Potter. He is rich kid in Magic Kingdom, where of course he is the bestest ever, and he gets to use his super magic at magic school and pilot a giant robot. I'm sure there's waifus in this, because of course there is, it's a freaking isekai series. And no, I didn't watch this. And no, I'm not going to watch this. All the freaking terrible, terrible cliches of isekai, mixed with robots, super magic, and of course, he's the bestest ever. The worst part is, we already have an isekai mecha series. It's called Magic Knight Rayearth. Guess what? There's others that are significantly better than this, like Escaflowne. But no, whatever. We're gonna get our Harry Potter Pilots of Mecha series. It's great. It's super. It's exactly what I want. None of the charm or fun of Rayearth, and none of the quality that made Harry Potter a memorable franchise. Let's move on to things that don't piss me off nearly as much. Going old school, we have Heavy Metal Elgaim. This is a 1984 classic featuring a very strong pedigree of Yoshiyuki Tomino, creator of Gundam and Brain-Powered, in addition to Mamoru Nagano, creator of 5-Star Stories and the mecha designer and character designer from Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, which you can tell because many of these characters look like rejected designs from Zeta Gundam, and his robots look like prototypes for 5-Star Stories. This isn't a bad thing. Aesthetically, this series is actually really, really good. It's just everything else is kind of banal. It follows Daba, who seems to have a mysterious background, and his buddy Kiao as they travel the wastelands of a ruined planet, driving around in their little vehicles called Works, and carrying around a large robot, generally referred to as a heavy metal. They end up teaming up with former pirate Amu to be the little trio that travels around this strange world, and ends up getting involved with the politics that are going on in space, more or less through accident, while battling against a group of pirates. In a 1993 interview at Anime Expo, Mamoru Nagano said that he created 5-Star Stories because he was disappointed in how Elgaim turned out. And I think I know why. There's a magical fairy in this story that kind of screws up the tone a lot. You go from dark, heavy, Tomino-style storytelling to then having silly fairy fly around and do shenanigans. It kind of comes off really weird. That being said, the Works are kind of cool-looking hover bike things. The heavy metals look pretty awesome too, and the fact that the main character needs to drive his Works into the heavy metal in order to activate it is a cool-looking combination sequence. Speaking of standing out, we have Gun X Sword, or as it was localized in America, Gun Sword. It takes place on a distant planet where Van searches for the man with a claw hand who murdered his bride. He ends up teaming up with a young girl named Wendy, who is searching for her lost brother, and they end up battling bandits and other evils on this planet while using a cool-looking robot. It's a relatively simplistic story that has a very Western-type feel, especially if that going town to town, searching for specific people while battling bad guy of the week, sometimes having a couple arcs that last a few episodes to battle the same bad guys over and over again. Overall, it's not a bad little series. I remember watching a fair chunk of it back in the day, and I really enjoyed it. Overall, it's a relatively heavy revenge-based series that fits in with a lot of the other dark franchises in this game. It'll only really provide you with the main robot and some upgrades, but you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. Finally, the one that I was the most surprised to see on the list, and the one that I wasn't sure if it was going to be terrible or amazing, the one that actually got me to watch it and really, really enjoy it. SSSS.Gridman. It's the first time it has showed up in the series. It is a TV series from 2018. However, if you are from America and were living at a certain time period, you would be familiar with the Super Sentai that this is based off of. In Japan, it was called Gridman. In America, it was called Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Not even making this up. In this series, teens used musical instruments to travel into the computer to become Gridman and battle against computer viruses sent by a very, very petty villain. If you're looking for a good laugh, you could probably find a few of these episodes online and get a couple chuckles out of it. Interestingly enough, the villain in this series is also really, really petty early on, and I find that hilarious because it is very reminiscent of the American series that way. However, the main story follows a boy named Yuta Hibiki. As cliche as it sounds, he has amnesia, but also learned that he had a connection to a strange being that appears on a computer screen named Gridman. He can fuse with the being in the computer to become Gridman himself and battle against kaiju that are attacking the city. What makes the series more interesting is the fact that no one remembers the kaiju fights except for Yuta and his friends. In addition to that, we learn that those who are killed by these battles end up kind of disappearing from real life. While they did exist at one point, their death is not by the kaiju, but by something else in the past, making the stakes very high. Not only are you trying to protect people, but you're trying to protect the memory of people, which definitely makes things a bit more intense than just, oh no, giant kaiju, and we're not going to worry about the consequences or the collateral damage. The Gridman team ends up getting a bunch of really eccentric weirdos who join up and can also go into the computer to become different weaponry and upgrades, toys, to expand Gridman's weaponry. I want to know if it's just going to be you use Gridman and then when you use certain attacks, it does the combination and then he uses the attack, or if, like Getorobo and other combiner series, if I can combine with said upgrade parts in order to function as that version of Gridman and possibly strip those parts off if necessary to revert back to standard Gridman based on situation. This could make for some interesting combat if he's allowed to swap the various modes, because that can make Gridman useful for the sky, useful for heavy defense, useful for heavy attack, and versatility makes a great unit. Whew! That is all 22 series. Thank you for getting through both videos with me. I know on this one I may have been a bit harsh on certain series, but that's because I have this thing called standards. And when you're doing an anniversary game, you kind of want high standards in there. You want stuff that really represents the whole franchise. If this was just Super Robot Wars Q, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But it's not. It's Super Robot Wars 30. By that standard, I want to have series that fit that standard. The worst part is there's DLC, and I'm 99% certain that DLC is going to be a lot of the series we wanted to see in here because that's how they're going to get you to buy it. Overall, I'm not super disappointed with the list. There's a lot of good here, and the DLC could probably expand our roster in ways that would probably make me happy, and hopefully make other fans of the franchise happy. But at the same time, this feels super lackluster for a 30th anniversary. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious what everyone thinks about Super Robot Wars 30. Also, if you'd like to hear more of my wonderful voice, you can join our Twitch channel where I end up playing RPGs and tactical games, because that's primarily what I enjoy to play. In addition to that, we have a Discord where we talk about all sorts of crazy stuff, and you'll always see my new video posts and my commentary on new Gunpla kits and things like that. Of course, please like and subscribe and all that stuff, because it really does help tiny channels like mine that are just trying to get our voices out there. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the tavern.